So while we just put up a video talking about some latest Nintendo rumors and a new game coming to the Nintendo Switch, Microsoft has decided to take all of the spotlight and put it on them with, unfortunately, a bit of negative news. We've got breaking news coming out of Microsoft involving two things: the launch of the Xbox Series X and Halo Infinite. Halo Infinite has been delayed until 2021, and there's a lot of things to unpack with this. And of course, the Xbox Series X has now been given a release window. But how will the delay of Halo Infinite impact the launch of the Xbox Series X? I think it's going to be a very crazy situation. So I want to go over all this information with you guys and just give you guys my thoughts on what's happening right now at Microsoft. What's going on, guys? I'm RGT85. If this is your first time on the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. But without any further ado, let's talk about what's going on with Microsoft, the Xbox Series X, and Halo Infinite, because I think it spells trouble for Microsoft. So one of the most anticipated games of 2020 for many gamers was, of course, Halo Infinite. This game has been in development for quite a while now. Xbox One owners were hoping that they were going to get it before the Xbox Series X came out, but of course Halo Infinite was announced as coming out in holiday of 2020. During the latest Microsoft press conference, we saw a lot of gameplay footage of Halo Infinite, and the reaction was a bit mixed. I thought the gameplay itself looked very nice. The world that you were in seemed very nice and smooth, but there was a problem. There was a lot of pop-up in the graphics, and the graphics themselves, well, they didn't really look all that impressive. The character models looked very strange, and everything just sort of looked like an Xbox One game instead of an Xbox Series X game. Of course, the Xbox Series X is still coming out this holiday season, but now it's looking like it will not launch alongside of the biggest game of 2020 with Halo Infinite, because Halo Infinite has been officially delayed until 2021. Now, this information is coming to us from 343 Studios themselves. The studio head Chris Lee put out the following information on Twitter. Today, I want to share an important Halo Infinite development update with the community. We have made the difficult decision to shift our release to 2021 to ensure the team has adequate time to deliver a Halo game experience that meets our vision. The decision to shift our release is the result of multiple factors that have contributed to the developmental challenges, including the ongoing COVID-related impacts affecting us all year. I want to acknowledge the hard work from our team at 343 Industries, who have remained committed to making a great game and finding solutions to development challenges. However, it is not sustainable for the well-being of our team or the overall success of the game to ship it this holiday. We know this will be very disappointing to many of you, and we share in that sentiment. The passion and support the community has shown over the years has been incredible and inspiring. We wanted nothing more than to play our game with the community this holiday. The extra time will let us finish the critical work necessary to deliver the most ambitious Halo game ever at quality we know our fans expect. Thank you for support and understanding. Now, this is very interesting because once we saw Halo Infinite, I didn't really have a huge problem with what we saw. Yeah, I thought the graphics were a bit mediocre, but I thought the game itself looked fine. But it was the stuff that we learned after the fact that really made me worried about Halo Infinite. The fact that this isn't just like a one and done release that's going to get subsequent DLC, but 343 wants to make this a 10-year long game by adding in additional content. That sort of stuff really makes it sound like a games as a service game to me. And while there have been some very successful games as a service games, you don't really see it with mainline franchises. You don't see Uncharted doing this, you don't see Mario doing this. So when Halo Infinite was announced to be essentially a games as a service, that kind of raised my eyebrows and threw up some red flags for me, because how much content would really be launching at the launch of Halo Infinite? Would this be a situation like Splatoon was on the Wii U, where, let's be real, the game itself was great, but the content was definitely lacking? And in order to have content for the next 10 years, because you don't want to do a sequel, you just want to make Halo Infinite its own sort of ever-living and ever-growing platform, that really raises a lot of concerns for me. Of course, the footage that we saw from this Halo event really sort of raised a lot of eyebrows when it came to things like ray tracing. Now, of course, the Xbox Series X is going to be the most powerful console on the market, but we learned shortly thereafter that ray tracing would not be at the launch of Halo Infinite if it was still coming out in 2020 and would be added in later at a later date. So then people were wondering, like, well, how far along is this game in development? This game has been in development for quite a while. Is there some sort of problem happening at the development cycle of Halo Infinite? What is causing all of these issues? These basic things that Xbox has been touting so heavily are not going to be included in its flagship game. Of course, then we learned that Halo multiplayer would be completely free on the Xbox Series X, meaning that if you wanted to play the campaign, you would either have to get it via Game Pass or purchase the game, but if you just wanted to play the multiplayer aspect, you could play it for completely free on the Xbox Series X. So that that was another thing. It was like, well, isn't Halo's multiplayer the most important component of the game? I know there are a lot of people that love Halo single player, but for me, I've always been interested in Halo's multiplayer. That's what's always been the driving force for me. That's always been the reason I've wanted to play Halo. I've actually never completed a Halo campaign, and I don't feel like I'm really missing out on anything. I think the multiplayer is the most brilliant aspect of the game. So putting the single player behind this paywall instead of the multiplayer seemed really strange to me, but it does seem like a direction that a lot of companies are sort of shifting into. Just Microsoft, it seems to be the first company doing it with a big title like Halo Infinite. So Halo Infinite is no longer coming in 2020. It has officially been delayed until 2021. So what does that say about the Xbox Series X? Is that going to be delayed as well? Well, no, because Microsoft shortly thereafter put out a press release talking about the Xbox Series X and talking about the launch window for the system, and now we know what month this system is going to come out in. Today we announce updates to Halo Infinite's launch timing. Our vision at Xbox and 343 Industries has always been to deliver the most ambitious Halo game ever for our fans, while also balancing the team's well-being. To do that, we will need to do some more time to finish the critical work necessary to launch Halo Infinite, which will come in 2021. We have plenty to keep you busy until Chief arrives. There will be thousands of games to play, spanning 4 generations, when the Xbox Series X launches globally this November, and over 100 optimized for Xbox Series X titles built to take full advantage of our most powerful console are planned for this year. So Microsoft is still launching the Xbox Series X this November, but there's a big problem. There's no flagship first-party title, which is just, that's just absolutely crazy to me. They are strictly relying on third-party games, most of which are using the smart delivery system, in which you buy the game once and you can play it on your Xbox One, or if you pick up an Xbox Series X, then you can pop it in there and get a more enhanced version of the game. But there is really no sort of reason to pick up an Xbox Series X this holiday season, because there's no major first-party game. Like, you look at what the PlayStation 5 is doing. By cutting off the PlayStation 4, a game like Spider-Man Miles Morales is only playable on the PlayStation 5. And yes, there's been a bit of, fight back for Spider-Man Miles Morales. Some people are a bit upset that it's not going to be a full-on massive 40+ hour adventure like Spider-Man on the PlayStation 4 was. It's a shorter experience, but still, it's a game that is utilizing the PlayStation 5, designed only with the PlayStation 5 in mind, meaning that it only runs on the PlayStation 5. If you want to play this Spider-Man game, you need to own a PlayStation 5. Whereas with the Xbox Series X, all of these games are third-party games that are all coming to the Xbox One as well, so there's really no sort of incentive, unless you want to play an enhanced version of NBA 2K21 on the Xbox Series X, to pick up an Xbox Series X this holiday. And you know what? This is definitely starting to look a lot like the launch of the Xbox One to me. The launch of the Xbox One was very, very rocky. Of course, there was the whole DRM situation. There was a whole bunch of scrutiny and speculation going on about that. They had to change everything up at the last second. The Kinect was the most important part of the Xbox One. That's what made it so expensive, but then all of a sudden we don't need a Kinect. And the games that launched, while they were decent, games like Rise, of course, I was a fan of Rise. Of course, a lot of people didn't really enjoy that game, and the Xbox One definitely struggled out of the gate, and the PlayStation 4 just sort of took off and never looked back. And now it's seeming like this is going to be that same sort of situation. Without a big flagship first-party title, why are people going to want to pick up an Xbox Series X? Which, let's be realistic here, more than likely the Xbox Series X is going to be the most expensive platform on the market whenever the price of the system is announced. I would guess it would be announced sometime soon, because it's coming out in just a few months, as we have now confirmed that it is launching in November. So the most expensive system on the market is not going to have a single first-party game launching this holiday to go alongside of it, to make people want to rush out and buy this system. And I just think this is big trouble for Microsoft. The problem is Microsoft's marketing has been all over the place. They try to be pro-consumer, and yes, you do have things like Game Pass that you could check out on your Xbox Series X, which is great because it's going to give you a large variety of games to play on your Xbox Series X, but you can already play these games on your Xbox One. You can already play these games for free on your Xbox One if you have Game Pass. So why would I spend hundreds of dollars potentially to buy an Xbox Series X just to play the exact same games that I'm playing on my Xbox One? And really, this is a shame to me, because I think I've been pretty positive on my Xbox Series X coverage on the channel. I thought the system had a lot of potential. Yes, Halo Infinite looked rough around the edges, but that was fine. You know, it's still a new Halo game. It's going to be a lot of fun. Games like The Medium I thought looked very, very nice, but I was definitely skeptical about still supporting the Xbox One. How much would this hold back development of the next generation of games for the Xbox Series X? And now not having any first-party titles launching at the launch of the Xbox Series X system, with Halo Infinite being delayed until 2021 with no release window. It could end up being winter of 2021. What the hell are you buying for your Xbox Series X? What is the point of upgrading this system if there's no game specifically for the system? I think consumers are going to look at this system and be like, what's the point? I'll go buy a PlayStation 5. I can play these exclusive games on the PlayStation 5, and I don't have to worry about other things like this that the Xbox Series X is bringing to the table. So this is a huge blow to Microsoft, I feel. It's going to be very interesting now to watch the launch of the Xbox Series X, because I feel like for most consumers, there's no point in buying the system. But let me know what you think of everything in the comments section down below. What do you think about this Halo delay? Do you think this is going to impact Xbox Series X sales? And are you surprised that the Xbox Series X is still coming out this November? And do you plan on picking one up? And if so, I mean, what games are you going to buy? Because I'm genuinely curious, because I'm going to buy an Xbox Series X, but I have no idea what I'm going to buy with it. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Be sure to check out the video we did earlier talking about some very potentially exciting Nintendo Direct rumors and things like that. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.